There's a reason you've always felt a strange pull toward the unknown. A fascination with the edge of things, life and death, light and shadow, truth and illusion. It's not a coincidence. It's a calling. Because buried deep within you, there are powers, real powers that you've never been taught to access. Not because they don't exist, but because the world is afraid of what happens when you remember them. We live in a society designed to keep you safe, small, and predictable. But what if I told you that you were born with 7 true dark powers, potent, ancient abilities that can shape reality, alter consciousness, and dismantle illusions, but you've never been told they exist because they're too disruptive to the systems that control you? You see, these powers aren't dark because they're evil. They're dark because they are hidden, obscured, feared. They live in the unexplored territories of your soul, in the places where you've been taught not to look. But they are there, waiting. And once you begin to awaken them, nothing in your life will ever be the same. In fact, the moment you begin to remember them, you'll feel it in your body, a deep activation, a shiver down your spine, a strange clarity in your chest. Because these aren't just metaphors, they're energetic truths. And the first step to reclaiming your dark powers is to face the truth. You've been lied to, not maliciously, but systemically. You've been conditioned to believe power only exists outside of you, in institutions, in authority, in systems. But the truth is, the most dangerous power is sovereign energy. And that is exactly what these 7 dark powers unlock. The first dark power is energetic presence. It sounds simple, but it's one of the most overlooked forces in existence. Your energy, when fully embodied, can influence people, shift outcomes, and bend perception. Most people walk through the world disconnected from their own field, leaking energy, absorbing frequencies that aren't theirs. But when you learn to call your energy back, to anchor it fully into your body, to own the space around you, you become a force, not by speaking louder, not by being more aggressive, but by being so undeniably present that others feel you before you speak. This is the power that mystics, warriors, and true leaders carry. It's not charisma. It's not charm. It's energetic command. And the moment you stop outsourcing your attention, stop scrolling, stop scattering your focus, you begin to reclaim it. The second dark power is shadow alchemy. You've been taught to fear your shadow, your anger, your grief, your jealousy, your shame. But those emotions are not enemies. They are messengers. And when you learn to sit with them, not judge them, not suppress them, but listen, you activate one of the rarest powers on earth: emotional transmutation. The ability to take pain and turn it into insight, to take rage and turn it into clarity, to take grief and turn it into connection. This is not spiritual bypassing. This is spiritual technology. Your shadow is not a flaw. It's a furnace. And when you stop fearing your darkness, you become whole. What if your most painful moments were not curses, but keys? What if the parts of you you've been hiding are the exact parts you need to become who you were meant to be? The third power is inner silence. In a world addicted to noise, silence is radical. But not just any silence, the kind of inner stillness that allows you to hear beyond the veil. When you train your nervous system to be still, truly still, you begin to perceive things others cannot. You notice patterns. You feel subtle shifts in energy. You receive guidance in ways that defy logic. But this power doesn't come cheap. It requires discipline. It requires you to face the discomfort that arises when all distractions fall away. Most people run from silence because it shows them what they've been avoiding. But you must learn to sit inside it like a throne, because the mind that can be still can see, and the one who sees becomes sovereign. The fourth dark power is intuitive knowing. This is not the same as rational thinking. Intuition is faster, deeper, and far more ancient. It's the voice you hear before the fear kicks in, the flash of clarity that doesn't come from facts but from resonance. You've experienced it before, those moments where you just knew something was right or wrong without knowing why. The tragedy is, most people have been taught to ignore that voice. to override it with logic, with consensus, with doubt. But when you begin to trust it, to train it, to follow it, you become dangerous to the systems that depend on your confusion. Intuition is a direct line to the field, to the unconscious intelligence of the universe. And every time you act from it, you strengthen it. Have you ever wondered how different your life might look if you had followed every intuitive whisper you ever ignored? These are just the first glimpses. These powers aren't fantasies. They're not fiction. They are skills trainable, measurable, usable. And the reason you haven't fully unlocked them yet isn't because you're unworthy. It's because you've never been taught they exist. But now you know. And once you know, you can't unknow. You can only choose: will you continue to live like these powers aren't real? Or will you begin to remember what you really are? What if the very things you've been told to suppress your intensity, your emotions, your knowing are actually the raw materials of your deepest power?
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
You were never taught how to use your fire. In fact, you were told to put it out, to calm down, to be more polite, less intense, less emotional, less you. And somewhere along the way, you started believing that your edges were a liability, that your passion was too much, that your instincts were dangerous. But here's the truth. Everything they told you to suppress was actually sacred. Everything they told you to hide was power in disguise. Your fire, your emotions, your instincts, your raw truth isn't something to be feared. It's something to be forged. And now more than ever, the world needs people who have learned to use that forbidden fire with precision, with depth, and with purpose. The fifth dark power is psychic rebellion. I don't mean rebellion for the sake of chaos. I mean the deep cellular refusal to accept illusions as truth. You've always felt that something was off, that the stories you were told in school, in society, even in some spiritual circles were incomplete. And that sense of rebellion, that sense of no, this isn't the whole truth, that's not defiance, that's discernment. You see through the veil. You hear the silence between the words. You feel the manipulation in the programming. And instead of falling asleep, you question. That's not a weakness. That's your mind aligning with your soul. The power of psychic rebellion is the refusal to be hypnotized. It's the ability to walk through the fog of illusion and recognize the architecture of control and then choose differently. Do you know how rare that is? How dangerous that makes you to the status quo? The sixth true dark power you carry is empathic absorption. This one is both a gift and a curse until you learn how to wield it. You don't just feel emotions, you become them. You walk into a room and suddenly you're carrying everyone else's sorrow, rage, grief. You think it's you, but it's not. You're absorbing because your field is open, sensitive, vast. And that can be overwhelming until you realize that this power, when trained, becomes a form of energetic healing. You can walk into chaos and transmute it. You can hold space for pain and alchemize it, but only if you learn the sacred art of energetic boundaries. This isn't about shutting down. It's about choosing what enters your field. It's about learning to distinguish what's yours from what's theirs. Most people drown in energy. You can become a filter, a transducer, a force that turns distortion into clarity. But you must stop running from your sensitivity and start owning it as a technology. And then we arrive at perhaps the most misunderstood dark power of all: emotional intensity. You've been told you're too much your whole life. Too deep, too emotional, too reactive, too sensitive. But what if I told you that your emotional intensity is the engine of your transformation? That it's not something to medicate or suppress, but to master. Intensity is not dysfunction. It's a sign that your soul is awake, that your nervous system is attuned to a deeper reality. And yes, it can feel volcanic, especially when it's been ignored for years. But when you stop trying to silence your emotions and start dialoguing with them, they reveal something stunning. Direction. Every emotion has a message. Anger is a boundary. Grief is a release. Fear is a signal. desire is a compass. But most of us were never taught to speak the language of emotion. Instead, we were taught to fear it, to numb it, to control it. But you can learn to channel it, to use your emotional fire not to destroy but to create. Let me ask you this. If you had never been told to fear your intensity, what would you have built with it by now? These powers, psychic rebellion, empathic absorption, and emotional intensity are not just traits. They're tools. They are the technologies of soul-level transformation. And they all arise from the parts of you that were never welcomed by society. Why? Because a person who owns these powers cannot be controlled. They cannot be manipulated with fear, shame, or guilt. They see through narratives. They feel what's real. They respond with truth, and that makes them sovereign. And sovereign beings are the greatest threat to systems built on control. So here's the question that changes everything. What if your greatest source of shame is actually your superpower? You've been told to hide your fire because your fire is disruptive. But what if this world needs to be disrupted? What if the old systems, the old stories, the old paradigms are meant to burn? And what if your fire is the match? There is one more power, one that overrides them all. One that, when awakened, changes not just your reality but the entire architecture of your soul's journey. It is the rarest, the most feared, and the most misunderstood. I call it soul hacking. It's the ability to consciously rewrite the script of your own incarnation, to override inherited patterns, social programming, ancestral trauma, and karmic loops, not by escaping them, but by re-entering them with full awareness and choosing differently. This is not visualization. This is not manifestation in the pop spiritual sense. This is radical spiritual agency, the power to reach into the deepest lines of your being and say, "This ends with me. This changes now." You've likely felt it before. That strange moment of clarity where you knew without any external reason that you were about to make a decision that would either repeat an old pattern or crack it open. Most people miss that moment. They drift past it and call it fate. But you're starting to notice that pause before you react, that cold, quiet voice that whispers wait, that heat in your chest that rises before you speak. That's your soul trying to wake you up inside the loop. And when you catch that moment and choose differently, you don't just change your day. You hack reality. You send a ripple back through your timeline and forward into the future. You bend the arc of your destiny. This final dark power isn't about control. It's about ownership. Ownership of your energy, your choices, your frequency. It's the realization that you are not just a character in this story, you are the author. And while the script may have been written by trauma, by culture, by family, by fear, you now hold the pen. But here's the terrifying truth. Most people would rather stay in a story they hate than admit they can rewrite it. Because rewriting requires responsibility, and responsibility feels like fire to the ego. So what do you do with that power? How do you actually use it? You start by tracking your loops. Begin to notice where you repeat yourself emotionally, relationally, financially, creatively. What types of people do you attract over and over? What situations do you keep finding yourself in? What emotions seem to orbit you like moons? These are not coincidences. These are data. Your soul is showing you exactly where the hack must begin. But don't try to change everything at once. Start with one loop, one trigger, one reaction. And rather than trying to suppress it or rationalize it, watch it. Enter it fully. Ask yourself in the heat of it, what would I do here if I were completely free? This question is the blade that cuts through the matrix. Because most of your actions aren't free. They're reactions, scripts, reflexes. But the moment you ask what you'd do if you were free, you create a gap. And in that gap, your soul speaks. Sometimes it whispers something wild, something illogical, something that feels terrifying but true. Follow it. That's the beginning of hacking your fate. This power is so profound because it collapses the illusion of victimhood. It doesn't deny trauma. It doesn't bypass pain. but it declares, I will not be defined by what happened to me. I will define what it means. That is the ultimate act of spiritual rebellion, to look at your past and say, I will make medicine from this. But here's the catch. Soul hacking is not a one-time event. It's a way of life. It's a constant returning to the truth that you are awake inside a dream, and every choice you make either reinforces the illusion or dissolves it. And the more you practice it, the more you realize something breathtaking. Life begins to respond to you differently. People shift, patterns break, synchronicities increase. Why? Because life is conscious, and when it sees you taking ownership, it co-creates with you instead of against you. And this is where all 7 dark powers converge. Presence, shadow alchemy, silence, intuition, psychic rebellion, empathic absorption, emotional intensity. All of them are access points to the soul hack. Each one gives you keys to different doors. And when you begin using them together as a system, as a ritual, you don't just change your life. You begin to change the collective field. Because here's the deepest truth. You are not just healing yourself. You are healing your lineage. You are healing the archetype you were born to inhabit. You are healing the archetype you came here to break. And every time you choose differently, you send a signal across time that says, it is possible. Let me ask you a question that might burn a hole through everything you think you know. If your soul came here to hack the system from the inside out, are you living in a way that honors that mission or delays it? There is nothing wrong with you. There never was. You've just been playing a role that was handed to you by a world too numb to feel your fire. But now you remember. And with that memory comes a responsibility to live as if you are awake. Because you are. This is the moment where most people turn back. Not because it's too hard, but because the illusion of safety is so seductive. Because waking up isn't comfortable. It doesn't come with a certificate or a round of applause. It comes with silence, with trembling hands, with the quiet knowing that you can't go back to sleep. And yet, this is exactly where the real journey begins. Not the journey of learning more, trying harder, or fixing yourself, but the journey of activation. Of stepping into the field of life not as someone who's trying to survive it, but as the one who came here to rewrite it. The truth is this, you are already everything you're seeking. You've always been. The powers we've talked about, your presence, your fire, your intuition, your ability to feel, to transmute, to see through lies, to choose differently, these are not things you need to earn. They're not gifts some higher force will hand you when you're finally good enough. They are codes embedded in your being. Waiting, and now they've been remembered. That's the activation. The moment you remember what you are, the moment you stop looking out there for permission to be powerful, the moment you stop asking the world to tell you who you are, you begin to generate reality from the inside out. But here's the part they never wanted you to hear. You don't need to keep consuming more spiritual content to become powerful. You don't need one more course, one more book, one more meditation app. You need to embody. You need to practice. You need to live the truth that has always been inside you. Because information is not transformation. Embodiment is. And embodiment begins the moment you stop waiting for the perfect moment and start making the present moment perfect by showing up fully in it. You are not here to be liked. You are not here to be understood. You are not here to be safe. You are here to be lit up from within. To be on fire with truth, to walk into rooms and change the frequency without saying a word, to speak words that awaken others not because they are clever but because they are charged, to listen to your inner guidance so clearly that other people think you're insane for following it, and then watch as your life becomes proof that magic isn't fantasy, it's frequency. And if you're still wondering what your purpose is, let me tell you something radical. Your purpose is your presence. It's not a job title. It's not a mission statement. It's the energy you hold when you walk through the world. Your frequency is your legacy. What you say, how you love, what you amplify, what you transmute, these are the rituals of a fully awakened being. And the more you align with that, the more life bends toward you, not because you're special, but because you're real. So here's your invitation. Stop waiting. Stop waiting to be chosen. You are the chosen. Stop waiting for proof. You are the proof. Stop waiting to be ready. You are the readiness. You've been carrying these dark powers all your life. And now that you've remembered them, the question is no longer, do I have them? The question is, what will I do with them now? Because you are not just a person. You are a portal, a walking activation, a living transmission of what is possible when a human being stops pretending to be powerless and starts living like the divine force they truly are. And now, everything changes not because the world gives you permission, but because you finally gave yourself the keys. You have these 7 true dark powers, and now you know. Now go live like it. The world is waiting.